Our fourth classical concert is very special because we celebrate the return of Pepe Romero to the Long Beach Symphony. Pepe is a living legend who is not only one of the most wonderful musicians I've ever worked with, but also an incredible person who brings irresistible humanity to the stage and to his music. And I think it is that combination of incredible artistry and personality that makes his music making so unique. So I hope you can join us for this singular event. And Pepe will perform the guitar concerto of all guitar concertos, the Concierto de Aranjuez by Spanish composer Joaquín Rodrigo. And this concerto transports us to Spain. The first movement is infused with dance-like rhythms, but I really think that the crown jewel of this work is the magical, truly magical second movement, with the slow movement, with its haunting melody for English horn. And it is one of the most beautiful melodies ever composed. We'll start the evening with the Andean Elegy, a work by Gabriela, a composer who is American, but explores in her music her Peruvian roots. Like other composers before her, like Zoltán Kodály and Béla Bartók, she collects music from indigenous peoples and weaves those influences into her compositions. So, for instance, in her Andean Elegy, there is a very prominent solo flute part, which is inspired by the zampona or the pan flute. And the pan flute or pan pipe, same thing, is a traditional Andean instrument that originated in Peru. And in this music, you will hear like stylistic elements inspired by the pan pipes of the region. For me, I think in her Andean Elegy, there's a story. I call it, a day in the jungle, where at the beginning, the opening represents night and the awakening of the jungle. It's really like the rainforest groans as it comes to life. And the flute is the first bird awake and makes sure that with an improvisational solo, nobody stays asleep. And so the other creatures of the jungle awaken one after another, moaning and groaning. It might be dangerous animals, crawling things, giant snakes, whatever you imagine. There is a tropical storm, and just like in real life, it comes quick and it comes hard, and before you know it, it's over. And finally, the rainforest music of the beginning returns, evening settles, and in the dusk, only two clarinets are still awake in a love duet, and finally the piece ends in a very dreamy atmosphere of the night. So that's The Day in the Jungle by Gabriela, Lena. And in the second half of the program, you will hear George Frederick Handel's famous water music. Georg Friedrich Handel, I should say. Handel represents the high point in English Baroque music, which I find very funny because, he was originally German, but the English loved Handel, especially when he then decided to anglicize his name to George Frederick. And besides his masterwork, the oratorio Messiah, it's the water music that is his most familiar composition. And the story of the water music involves a very twisted storyline that involves royal bloodlines in Britain. And long story short, when Queen Anne died without leaving an heir, the English crown passed to the House of Hanover. And it was the new king, George I, who requested music for a lavish boat trip down the River Thames. It was supposed to be a big party, and the king was known to enjoy music during his outdoor excursions. It was Handel who was asked to compose the music for that, to entertain the king and his guests. And so the first performance of the water music was actually on water. The musicians were stationed in the middle of the river on a barge, and so it was a kind of an open air a concert experience. And Handel himself, of course, directed the band. There were hundreds of boats on the river. The king loved Handel's music so much that he demanded it to be repeated over and over again. We will play a selection of movements from the 3 water music suites. All movements are based on dance forms of the day. So like the Allemande, the Sarabande, a gigue or minuets. There's a lot of famous music in these suites. And as to be expected for party music, the music is very joyful and bright, with bold music for the brass and a lot of spirited dances, like the gavotte or the famous hornpipe. So, celebratory and festive, this is one of Handel's greatest orchestral works and a true Baroque masterpiece. Handel's Water Music.